slut, bitch, hoe, ski, mammy, Jezebel. Today we're going to talk about what all these terms have in common. So the derogatory terms that are used against black women did not just come from these days. They've actually had a presence in our culture for a long time. And I wanted to talk about it because I feel like for my last video I talked about white girls with black eyes. And I got some comments about black women being the issue. And I thought that was interesting because that's something that has historically been said. Like, it's not our fault, it's because they're loud, stupid, all this other stuff, you know. So I thought it would be interesting to really go back to historically, when did black women become this big image of being undesirable? So we're going to first go way back to Africa, the motherland, where the European settlers would go into Africa, right? And they discovered these tribes. And you have to understand, you know, it's a whole other culture. It's hot in Africa. So the women in the tribes were not dressed like the European women. They were actually not clothed as much at all. So when the European men seen this, they said, wow, these primitive creatures. In fact, there are writings about black women, and the early interpretations were that they were primitive and hypersexual, hypersensual, that they were animalistic, that they were not human. Now, let's talk about Sarah Baartman. For those of you who don't know, Sarah Baartman was an African woman from South Africa. And when she was young, she was actually taken from South Africa and brought to Europe. Now, when this happened, Sarah Baartman was kind of like a sex slave, I would call that. She was put on display to stand on the stage completely unclothed in front of people. They would poke her, they would say obscene comments to her, and they would treat her basically like a circus freak, really, not because any accent she had, but because of her body. She was very curvy, like a lot of black women are. She had big breasts and big butt, and they didn't see this as being a type of human. Instead, they seen it as being primitive. They seen her as being like an animal. So Sarah Baartman lived her life, unfortunately, being treated like a half-human, like a sex slave, basically. So when Sarah died, this is how crazy it is. And there's actually a video on YouTube about Sarah Baartman. Look it up. It's really good information. I'll put a link in the box. But those of you who don't know, when she died, she did not stop being an animal to them or stop being a test subject. They actually dissected her body. They dissected her sexual organs. They dissected her entire body. And they put her on display in Paris. And actually, until recently, they just took her body down, like recent as the 70s. You would think that someone would think before, you know, hey, this is kind of wrong, we're showing this woman's body to the public, but it didn't take till the 70s where they actually took the display down. And recently, her remains were actually just shipped back to South Africa. Now, forward a little bit into American slave days. Now, black women, as many know, were raped. And when they were raped, they were pregnant with the master or whoever, the overseer's child. Now, to justify this, the people who were impregnating these women had to come up with an excuse for the rape and the taking advantage of the woman. The excuse was, well, it's not our fault, it's the black woman's fault, because she's so sensual, she's so hypersexual. She enticed me. It wasn't me, it was her. And this image was the image of Jezebel. Now, Jezebel is the idea that black women, they are the ones that wanted the white men. And please understand, this whole stereotype did not end there. But just remember for now that Jezebel, it was an early preconception of black women being hypersexual and hypersensual. Now, there's another stereotype about black women that was actually also used during slavery to justify certain things, and that was the stereotype of mammy. Mammy was used for the idea that basically the slaves, oh, they're not in poor conditions. They're actually fine, you know, because look at Mammy. Mammy's happy. Mammy loves my babies. And if any of you can't think of who Mammy is, just watch a lot of the old flicks where they have big, overweight black women who were perceived as being ugly, unattractive. Another thing to say, you know, oh, we wouldn't rape black women. I mean, they're Mammy. You know, I don't want to touch that. So it was used for that purpose, and also used for the purpose of justifying slavery to make it look like the slaves were actually not in terrible conditions. And, you know, the movie Gone with the Wind actually is a prime example of this, where they show an image of slavery being not that bad. And, you know, Mammy, who was played by Hattie McDaniels, is just, she's happy, she loves the children, you know, she's not bothered by her condition, she accepts her condition. This was used to perpetuate that stereotype. But, so go a little more forward, we're going into the 20th century. And during the new age of film, you find that black people still could not break that stereotype. So here we go, in a whole other century, right? Black women are still being cast as being Mammy, being cast as being Jezebels. And it was a big issue to a lot of black people. In fact, the film Carmen Jones, which was supposed to be, you know, a really big achievement, as the first all-black cast, but the NAACP and other groups rioted because they're like, well, how come she has to be perceived as a prostitute? Why can't we have black women in a uplifting sense? I hope I'm not going too fast, but I'm just trying to make the point that the image of black women being a hypersexual Jezebel and a loud-mouthed, big woman named Mammy were very early implanted into our culture and into our mindset. Now, go forward to now. What do we have? Black woman, the stereotype. Just if you ever have time, look up what people think. Put black woman into a search engine. You'll find some funny comments, right? So the image of black women was that they were loud, obnoxious, obscene. Think about the fact that in the entertainment industry that you can hardly become an entertainer without taking your clothes off. That's the image of Jezebel. I'm a fan of Beyonce in some senses, but this is probably my biggest fault with her, is that she's so talented, yet she's relied on her body to be the person that she is. While I'm like, girl, you have talent, you should be able to be that without all that extra stuff. She often has to wear things that show her body instead of her mind and her ability. And this, to me, is a modern-day version of the Jezebel stereotype. The other thing, think about Medea. Think about Big Mama's house. You know, these are the same stereotypes that were inside of slavery, yet we haven't broke them yet. Now, think about the overall conception. I would like you to now think about the overall conception of black woman. Ask a lot of people what a stereotype of black women are, and they will tell you that we are loud, that we're obnoxious, and that we're not attractive. I mean, there's this one dude actually said it at a function that we had at school. It's called Why Do We Hate Black Women? And he actually said, oh, I don't want to date black women because they're fat, they don't go to the gym, and I'm not going to date you if you don't do that. This is a stereotype, right? And that they're, you know, loud and blah, 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 all of these things. Now, I'm not saying that no stereotype has any truth to it. Stereotypes are stereotypes for a reason. But it's important to get the bigger point and the bigger picture of these specific stereotypes against black people. And I say black people because it's not just black women. When they insult black women, they're insulting black men. Black men, please do not forget that you came from a black woman. And so I'm trying to present this issue inside of a new light to also keep in mind that the attack against black women is not just an attack against black women, it's an attack against black people.